South African Airways will now be jointly owned by strategic equity partner Takatso Consortium, which will hold the majority shares of 51%. The embattled airline has now become privatized and will not rely on government for funding. Takatso will own 51%, while government will own 49%. For more on this and a bit more clarity, I'm joined by our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi. Kopano, very good morning to you. I suppose this is a way forward. I mean, it's been a long wait. I think December 2019, now we finally have some clarity. What does this essentially mean for South Africa's new management, SAA's new management?
Absolutely, and I think the first person who will probably be the most excited about this news is our Minister of Finance, Tito Mboweni, who has for at least the last 3 years been saying that SAA should be privatized in some way or another or sold off because it was just too capital intensive on the South African finances. So essentially what's happened now is that they have gone into an agreement with a consortium, Takatso, which is jointly owned by a very well-known businessman, Mr. Tepo Mahlwele, who owns Harith Investments. They're a very big investment firm, and they invest in logistics and infrastructure across the continent. And Mr. Gideon Novik, who is formerly of Lift Airlines. So he's a long-standing part of the aviation society in South Africa. He understands it well. And they have now gone in and bought 51% of SAA, which is interesting. I mean, on the one hand, there have been a lot of complaints around privatizing an airline like SAA. You know, there was a lot of conversation about whether or not this is the right move, whether an airline should be held as a South African strategic asset and its legacy, its name, the heritage associated to it. So now that they are trying to move it off of the government's balance sheet and give it to a private investor to run and manage, it should be interesting to see how society reacts to it. But I think all in all, a very good move by government, because we cannot afford to hold on to these state-owned entities any longer.
And we heard them speaking, the new stake, speaking about some of the challenges that lie ahead, like some of the decisions that need to be made. I mean, which planes they'll use, which routes to take. So when it comes to the processes that still need to follow, there is essentially quite a long way to go.
Absolutely, and the Minister was clear on that as well. They have to still do a due diligence. So I think what will happen is that the new consortium will look at the true state of SAA, how much debt they're in, how much equity they still own, if they're actually generating any cash on which routes, and decide which ones to let go of and which ones to keep, and possibly try and enter new markets that they've lost in the last decade or so, where they haven't been in operation or fully functional. And I think they also need to now, in addition to the due diligence, need to go and find financing or figure out just how expensive this entire exercise is going to be. There was discussions that it could cost over 3 billion rand in the initial stages. That's how much capital they have already committed to investing in this airline. SAA is in significant amounts of debt at the moment. They have at least 16 billion rand in debt on their books. So a 3 billion initial outlay, plus all of the airlines and the subsidiaries, which is a very important point that they mentioned. They still need to look at what they're going to do with the subsidiaries. SAA Technical, Mango, Airchefs, all of those companies, private companies that rely heavily on SAA being fully functional, are also up for debate, which I think will be difficult for the workers of those organizations to understand and to take on. SAA Technical are about to go on strike, in fact, this very morning.
Few hours,
Yes, because of unpaid wages in the last year as a result of the business, they say, as a result of the business rescue process and COVID. So there's a lot of work still to do in the next couple of weeks. They say it's going to take a few weeks to get through all of these processes. And I guess we just have to wait and see.
As we speak about the staff, Kopano, we heard Minister Pravin Gordhan speaking about how they will select the best of the very best. That really signals, that a huge selection criteria will take place here, and not everyone will be happy.
Absolutely. I think it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that there could be retrenchments on the cards as they go forward with this process. SAA did have a very significant staff complement, and when they were not making money, they started letting go of some people. And now, generally, when there are new owners, there is a shake-up in management and in staff to match skills with the required direction that the company is going to take. So we could comfortably assume that they'll be looking to let go of some staff or sort of restructuring the business in one way or the other, which, yeah, unfortunately.
When it comes to some of the objectives that were spoken of here and the future of SAA, ensuring that it's viable, it's scalable, and all of that, those important elements, and we heard him, Pravin Gordhan, right towards the end here, speaking about how if anyone has a name idea, name suggestion, they're welcome to bring it through, but at the moment, it'll stay SAA. When it comes to all those processes and making it attractive internationally and all those partnerships that are imperative, you know, what would we be looking at?
Well, I think that is where the experience and expertise of Gideon will come in this regard, because he's run several low-cost airlines in the past quite successfully. He was involved in Kulula and Comair, and this newly launched Lift. Well, I don't know where it is at the moment, but, you know, he was very heavily involved in Lift. So I think expertise of that nature are going to come in very handy. The airline business across the world is a low-margin, high-volume business. It's very expensive to run an airline. The cost of petrol is astronomical more often than not. Maintenance of aircrafts is very difficult. Regulation, licensing, all very expensive exercises across the board. And globally, airlines struggle unless they are really competing on the very, very margins. And you have quick flights, you have an extensive network, you have good routes that other people don't have. That really is how you survive. And I think that's going to be key for them. They want to look at how they can make themselves an affordable carrier, how they can be efficient given the state that they're in right now, and how that can build the airline going forward.
And what do you imagine that this announcement and these news will have on the state of the economy and the markets?
That's an interesting one. I guess we'll have to see. We can't predict these things, you know. Sometimes the market would say, yes, this is great news, and we'll see the JSE react and respond positively, or it could really have no impact at all. It will be interesting to see, and I think we'll be tracking that throughout the day to see how the market reacts.
Right, let's leave it there for now. Of course, bringing you up to speed with the news just in. Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan briefing the media on the state of SAA, announcing a strategic equity partnership for the embattled airline Takatso, which means Aspire taking 59% of the stake, while government has 41%. We will continue throughout the course of the day to bring you more. Kopano Gumbi, our business reporter, bringing us up to speed.